The average professional sports career is shorter than you think. If you're one of those rare athletes who achieve superstar status, you never escape the public eye after retirement. But what becomes of the others? The ones who may not have had a Hall of Fame career, but kept you tuning into the games and reading the papers day after day. Many stay on in some capacity in their sport, often with the team that they played for. Others need to get away and explore new ventures. These are the stories of some of those athletes, the ones that you once knew everything about. Andy Moog stood in goal for the Bruins for 6 years. On June 25, 1993, the Bruins traded the popular goalie to the new Dallas Stars. Moog played 3 seasons in Dallas before retiring after one final year in Montreal. Today, he lives back in Texas, where he is a part owner of the minor league Fort Worth Brahmas.
It was tough the first year or so to be away from the game as a player, and I need to have focus and put my attentions on certain things, and I thought this was a nice way to get a learning experience and also focus and concentrate on a few things as well.
You might not think a Canadian-born athlete would settle in the Lone Star State, but hockey is booming in Texas.
It's the fastest growing sport in Texas. Just as an example, the number of ice facilities here in the Metroplex has gone from 1 the first year the Stars were here 8 years ago to upwards of 15 sheets of ice now. And you know, the grassroots part of the game is where the Brahmas fit in. If we can educate and teach people how to watch and enjoy the game, we'll probably become Stars fans eventually, but we'll get to show our game to them for a few years anyways.
He's also a goalie consultant with the Vancouver Canucks, and last fall made an appearance in the People's Court.
Gentleman had purchased a supposedly game-worn jersey over eBay, and after some consultation with so-called experts, he decided that it wasn't a game-worn jersey. He wanted to go to People's Court to have the case heard by Judge Wapner, and People's Court production staff got a hold of us down here at the Brahmas, and we set up an appearance for me to come on in, and it was quite a bit of fun. It was a good experience.
Mr. Moog, who I'm told was a very famous hockey player for the Boston Bruins. Were you, sir?
I had my moments, thank you.
Good, good. I've had mine, too.
In celebration of Moog's finer moments, the Brahmas have issued a limited number of collector paintings denoting the 4 stops in the goalie's career. They can be purchased through the team.
The majority owner of the team is from New York. His name's Stuart Fraser, and he just approached me one day about doing some sort of retrospect on a career, and he'd become familiar with this artist who had done several things of this nature with NHL players as well. And I said, you know what, I'll leave that up to you. I think it's a great idea, but I'll leave all the artistic impressions up to you and the artist. And this is what they came up with. I'm very proud of it. It's beautiful.
For Schmotz, good position. Screen shot, scores! Bobby Schmotz.
In the late 70s, some called a Bobby Schmotz slap shot a work of art. He scored at least 20 goals in every season with the Bruins.
We used to say if you're at a bad angle, shoot at the melon, which was the goalies, and it just not something that I worked at. It was a high shot. You know. It had a little bit to do with when I first went to Chicago, when with the Blackhawks. We used to be able to have the big hooks, and it was a big hook, so I think it was limited to 1.5 inches. So you really used to be able to keep the puck a lot lower. You used to do some deep dips and dives. And then as they went, they made it a 1/2 inch. Well, it was tough to get a hook in a 1/2 inch, so you laid it more back like a wedge. And I think that probably had more to do with it than anything else.
His greatest season was in 1977, when he netted 11 goals in 14 games in the playoffs. Today, Bobby lives in Milwaukee, Oregon. He's retired after spending several years in the roofing business.
My brother and I'd taken a roofing material up to Vancouver and started a company. We had a company up there, and I worked for a year. And then when the Canadian dollar started to decline, we made a decision I'd come down here and sell the product here and teach the guys how to put it down. And I worked right up until, 2 years ago. My wife passed away about 3 years ago, and I just figured, well, life's too short for this. I'm not going to work the rest of my, and I'm just going to try to enjoy it. And to the present time, that's what I'm doing right now.
From Oregon to Las Vegas, Nevada, where former Bruin forward Randy Burridge lives now.
It's just so exciting, even though you're here all the time. I mean, I've been here for 2 years, and I still have only seen probably half of it.
What he is seeing a lot of is basketball courts.
My kids are going to Green Valley Christian School. It's a great school, and they decided to start a sports program. And, we just volunteered and just for the kids and help out. And I enjoy it. We have practices and stuff, and the kids are just learning. I mean, they never really were into competitive sports. So this is our second year. We've gotten better, and hopefully next year it'll even be that much more successful.
Burridge freely admits the transition from hockey to hoops has been a challenge.
I played with the Bruins, who played in the same building as the Boston Celtics. That's about my knowledge of basketball.
Steve Casper didn't let his firing as Bruins coach in 1997 stop him from continuing a career in hockey while still keeping a home here in the Boston area.
When I was a player, I was also a union rep and participated in the collective bargaining process. Then I got to see the management side for 4 years, and I thought I could take those experiences and really help a player along in his career.
He is now a sports agent.
I do currently represent 3 players that are on NHL contracts. One of them with the Bruins, Andre Savage, who was last year spent, I think, 43 games up with the big club. Unfortunately, he had shoulder surgery in training camp this year and just started playing again in Providence, so he's working his way back up.
His short coaching career in Boston was often difficult, but he has no regrets.
I know what I had to work with, and I know how hard I worked at it and what I brought to the table. I leave with no sour grapes, and I leave with my head held high because I know the set of circumstances that I was given, and I think we did okay with that.
And now he can continue in the sport that he loves, but in a whole new capacity.
Obviously, I turned professional at 19 years of age when I started playing for the Bruins, and it's what I know, and I just felt that I could take these experiences and help a young guy through his career.
Here it comes. Fly ball to deep left. Yastrzemski is going hard. Way back. And he dives and makes it.
After I got out of baseball, I finished college, went on to law school, and have been practicing law now for 24 years. Most of what I'm doing now is civil litigation to defend a couple of hospitals and the doctors and nurses that work there.
Hideo Nomo's recent no-hitter was the first for a Red Sox player since 1965. The last man with Boston on his chest to have done it, Dave Moorhead.
Bob Tillman was the catcher, and I said to Tillman, "What are we going to throw? The count's 0-2." He says, "I'm not calling this pitch. You're calling this pitch. You're telling me what we're going to throw." So I said, "Man, we're going to throw a curveball low and in, and hopefully I'll chase it."
When Moorhead's career ended in 1971, he went back and earned his college degree, which led to a career in the sporting goods business.
Hi there, how are you? I was with a chain of retail stores on the West Coast and ran their sporting goods department there started that after I got out of college in '73.
He now owns his own marketing agency for sporting goods, and after all these years, he still follows the Red Sox.
My son grew up loving the game, still does, and is a big Red Sox fan, and I still follow the Sox and go to a lot of Angel games locally here in Southern California.
Also living in California is former Sox reliever Jim Willoughby, who owns his own construction business. Willoughby was a key acquisition for the ball club in 1975. He provided strong relief down the stretch and into the playoffs.
The pitching staff in Boston at that time was hurting, and so they had to use me. And I was able to perform. I was in a good groove at the time, so I went from AAA in the Boondocks to, the World Series. And, that was the best that I did under pressure anywhere. And the longer I'm retired, the better a player I was back then.
With that kind of humor, it's no surprise that Willoughby was one of the charter members of the Buffalo Heads, a hard-partying, practical, joking group of Red Sox led by the spaceman Bill Lee.
I know I was smoking way too much marijuana, which I I don't drink and I don't smoke, and I haven't for 17 years now. But that affected us in lots of ways. And it caught up with me eventually. I can only speak for myself, but you know, we had good times.
Another member of the Buffalo Heads was starter Rick Wise.
We were just free-spirited bunch of guys and loosey-goose and liked to have fun. Me, I love putting on the uniform. I felt very blessed that I had an opportunity to be a big league player for so long, and we just had a lot of fun.
Wise won 17 games for the Sox in '75. He's now the pitching coach for the Long Island club of the Independent Atlantic League, and he still cherishes his years here in Boston.
The heritage, the history of Boston, what it's all about, and the fans are, they just are rabid. They're crazy about the Red Sox, and it was a great opportunity for me, and every player should have an opportunity to play in Boston.
Perhaps the most beloved of the 1975 Red Sox was Luis Tiat. His popularity in Boston that year has rarely been equaled as he dazzled the Reds and the nation in that World Series. Today, El Tiate lives in Georgia, where he is the head baseball coach of the Savannah College of Art and Design.
Hey, good job, Vic. Good job, Vic.
Yeah, after I win this game, huh? The president of the school sent me a letter. They want to interview me. And I said, okay. On December 29, I'm coming to Savannah, bringing my wife with me. You know, and then we sit down, they show me the college, everything, what they do. And I like it.
Tiant's assistant coach is his son, Luis Tiant Jr.
Every time he pitch him up, he get hit. He and me, we got a pretty good relationship. We never having any beef, anything. He might get mad at me sometimes, because he might think I'm lazy and don't want to do this and don't want to do that. But it's a great experience for me. You know, a great experience, be with him, be in college, because that's something I want to do before, after I retire, I want to do. Morning. One out, okay? We'll work.
And to this very day, Luis is still wildly popular in Boston.
I go anywhere. You want to say, people send me a bottle of wine. I pay for the food. You know, I mean, I know how it came for, but that's the way they feel it. You know, and that's the kind of thing I say. I love Boston because people treat me like a gentleman. People treat me with respect.
Tiant would have his cigar. Hey, how you guys doing? You know, hey, well, you guys are ugly. I mean, things that we used to say keep everybody loose. Him and Scott, they'd get an argument, but you couldn't even understand what they were saying. One would be having the Cuban accent. George would have his Southern accent. This was the funniest thing you would ever see. And this kept everybody loose. You need guys like that.
Mike Torres was a workhorse for the Sox in the late 70s. Unfortunately, he is remembered in this part of the world for one fateful day and one fatal pitch.
There's still a lot of people today, Bucky Dent, like, you know, those things. But you know what? I says, hey, how you doing? And that doesn't bother me. That doesn't. I go along with it, and as long as people don't get nasty, you know, I can live with the Bucky Dent. And that, I mean, yeah, I gave it up, and things like that are going to happen. Did it bother me? Yeah, it bothered me. But you know what? Life goes on because, I mean, there's nothing you can do about it to bring it back.
Torres retired from baseball in 1984. He sold office furniture for a few years before starting his own company in 1991.
My name in my company is Matt Premiums International, and what I do is I target corporations. I do put their company logos on T-shirts, hats, bags, coffee mugs, pencils, pens, anything that companies advertise their logos out to the public.
Torres doesn't follow baseball as much these days. He occasionally plays in Yankee old-timer games, a team that he won 2 World Series games for in 1977. He rarely hears from the Red Sox, but is often reminded of his place in history.
I look at some of the films. Early in the game, it was not hardly any win at all. And then around that inning, you could see the flags moving out there. And I went, oh, gosh, you got it up in that little jet stream that carried the ball that far. So, you know, looking back at it, I should have just pitched them away.
I work at Boston University in the development office, and basically spend most of my time, watching my kids play.
I retired in 1990 from pro hockey and went back to BU here, and I was an assistant coach for 4 years and got my MBA. Then I recently went into the executive search business. I'm managing director with Korn Ferry International.
I work for a company out of Livonia, Michigan called Velasquez Communications, and I'm a market service consultant.
Jack Hughes, who was a hockey player at Harvard and played on the Olympic team with us, we decided that we'd start a brokerage company together. We said, well, what can we call our company? And Jack said, well, one thing we have in common is the bean pot. He goes, how about we call it bean pot, something or other? And I said, great.
Many may have already forgotten the legend of Gordie Lochbaum, but in the mid-1980s, he did it all for Holy Cross, starting on both offense and defense. Twice, he was a candidate for the Heisman Trophy, finishing third in 1987.
It was one of those crazy situations where it hadn't been done in 20 years since Leroy Keys back in 1970 was going both ways for Purdue. It's very difficult. Everything just has to be perfect for it to work out. And you got to have a real good athlete. I think you got to do it in more of the northern states. I think it's very difficult for somebody to play both ways down in Florida or Texas just because of the weather. So when I hear the comparisons and using that as a term, it's satisfying, of course, and especially when if they say Charles Woodson is doing a Gordie Lochbaum, that's pretty special because he's quite an athlete.
Lochbaum was drafted by the Steelers, but he didn't make it in the NFL, so he began searching for a career.
When I finished football, I coached for one season. I wanted to see if that's what I wanted to do, and I coached Division III down at Rowan College in New Jersey. I coached there for a season and realized that college football coaching is a tough job. A lot of time, incredible amount of dedication and commitment to that, and it's very difficult to have a family. So I got involved in insurance. I moved back up here to Worcester. I started business with my roommate from college. His brother's the president of this agency. We could proceed by somewhere where I never want to leave. I love working here, and I have great clientele that I work with.
You guys doing a television show of me on Where Are They Now?
Ernie DiGregorio is another New England athlete who starred at the college level. In 1973, his basketball wizardry led Providence to the Final Four. He had an injury-plagued NBA career that ended with the Celtics in 1978. And today, you can find Ernie D at Foxwoods, serving as their official celebrity host.
How are you? Nice to see you. I met some of the tribal members at an affair, and I told them that I was interested in maybe running a Legends camp here. Would they consider it? And they said, yeah, just put it on paper. And then I said I knew Vinny Pazienza was no longer their celebrity host, and would they consider, someone like myself if something like that arises? And they said they thought I'd be a great celebrity host, and I got the job. Yeah, Cowles is good. I enjoy making people happy, and in my position here, I have a lot of opportunities to deal with all types of people. All our players, all the people that come here in Foxwoods and gamble, they're considered our players. So I like to mingle with them. I like to tell jokes with them, as you can see. And it's a lot of fun.
Pike's got it out front, mismatch against Williamson. Instead, they go lob to Miles, around Bush, the reverse layup. Beautiful play. Darius Miles with 7 points in the ball game.
Michael Smith also had a great college career while playing at Brigham Young. Drafted in the first round by the Celtics in 1989, he had the unenviable task of trying to replace the aging Burridge, Parrish, and McHale.
As we all know, the media in Boston can be a bit scrutinizing. So, yeah, there was pressure. I don't think I was prepared for that. But the thing I did wrong, and I admit it, and boy, I wish I'd have another chance to go back and do it again, is I played my whole college career at 225 pounds. And I went into my first NBA camp at 242. I worked my tail off to gain weight, to get stronger, because I thought I was going to have to bang with the big guys. I got shin splints, my knees ached, and all of a sudden my body, unlike, say, Karl Malone's, which could get bigger and stay the same fast, mine couldn't do it. And all of a sudden I became just another big, slow white guy.
Smith was eventually let go by the Celtics. He ended his career in 1995 with the Clippers, the team that he now serves as a radio and television broadcaster.
Odom the rebound, coming back himself.
He'll pull up, fire a three, line drive style, good.
I do radio play-by-play, and this will be my third season doing that. I also get TV work when Bill Walton, who is the regular television commentator, color commentator, can't do it because of a conflict with NBC or some other schedule. And I also co-host a half-hour pregame show before the game called Clippers Courtside. So it's kind of fun. I mean, it's only my third year doing it, but I am enjoying it.
Life in Rwanda is a far cry from the NBA. Hunger and poverty are rampant, and medical care almost non-existent. Among the relief workers in this war-torn nation, you can find former Celtic forward Kermit Washington.
I was watching television when a war broke out called Rwandan War, and 500,000 Africans were killed. And not one single American soldier went over there, and nobody cared. And I said to myself, well, if I can help them, I'll go over and see what I can do.
What Kermit is most known for is a moment he probably would like to forget. In 1977, as a member of the LA Lakers, he seriously injured the Rockets' Rudy Tomjanovich with one single punch.
It was a fight between myself and Kevin Kunert, and Rudy ran into it after it started, and I swung because I thought he was going to try to hit me. Now later realizing, no, he wasn't. But you don't know why he's running at you, and in the heat of the moment, he was very badly hurt, and then everybody's lives changed after that. The Lakers got rid of me. It was very difficult, but I went to the Boston Celtics.
Kermit played just one season with the Celtics and finished his career in Portland in 1984. He now lives there. He's planning his next trip to Africa in the coming week.
If you want to help people, do it yourself. Don't give money, because the money most of the time won't get there. Because I've learned, everything is so corrupt in these third world nations. So if we sent medicine over there, probably 90% of it wouldn't get there. So I always advise people, instead of always giving money, give it to somebody who is going or go with them. And then you at least make sure that people that really are in need will get it.
I'm an information specialist for the comptroller of the state of Texas. Today I was at the groundbreaking for a school that the comptroller was invited to, but she was unable to make it. So I would go there and I'd gather information, and then I report back to my managers and my directors and let them know what goes on.
Hello, welcome to Teen Pathways. I'm Reggie Dupart, and today we have another special topic on the issues that teens deal with. And today means, the subject we're dealing with today means a lot to me. The topic is going to be, it's all about love.
When I was playing sports from college to in the NFL, I did a lot of things that I don't always like to talk about, but from drinking and just partying, from women, and my wife was a Christian at the time, and so she sort of witnessed to me and got me real involved in giving my life to Christ.
When Reggie Dupart was drafted by the Patriots in the first round of the 1986 draft, he was coming off a brilliant college career at SMU. But the NFL would be a totally different experience.
The media quoted me as saying that I'm going to come in and take over, and guys like Andre Tippett and Blackman, the linebacker, I think a lot of the defense took it personal, and my training camp was the toughest part of my career there. They was hitting me every time. I mean, matter of fact, I got hurt at practice my rookie year. I got a turf toe just probably because, you know, guys were looking at me like I was this big mouth kid, and I hadn't really said anything. I was pretty humble, even though I did some things in my life I wasn't proud of. I was always a humble person and worked hard.
Although leading the Patriots in receptions in 1988, Dupart had a rather unspectacular career, but after retiring found a new passion.
My wife and I received a call from a television station called 3ABN. It's a Christian broadcasting network, and they asked to come give my story and talk about my life in football and my relationship with God. And from there, you know, we started doing our ministry, and the person that owned the station asked me to do a show which is called Teen Pathways, and we film about 8 or 9 shows every quarter.
You fully meditate on that scripture, you can see the love of God.
Reggie also returned to SMU to earn his degree and now works for Coca-Cola, in addition to his continuing work with young people.
I had an opportunity to coach here at my alma mater, SMU, but it's just not something I want to do. I think I can be more useful to young people in speaking and telling them how to give their life to Christ. And just even if they don't give their life to Christ, and telling them the importance of making good decisions, and just giving them my experience and letting them know that someone cares about them, because a lot of young people don't feel, you know, adults care.
I'm sure a lot of people are going to look at this and say, pretty boring existence, but no, I don't see it that way.
Many athletes use the time after their retirement to spend time with their families. For former Patriot Greg Mcmurtry, it's a full-time job.
My wife was given an opportunity to go to work, and she's an attorney. She's always wanted to practice law, and she wanted to do that. And I said, well, we'll give it a try and see how it goes. And here we are a couple years later, and things are so far so good.
Mcmurtry was a two-sport star out of Brockton. He was drafted by both the Patriots and the Red Sox.
I was drafted in high school to play baseball, and you know, I always wanted to play college football, and so I decided to go to the University of Michigan and pursue both, and you know, at the end of 4 years, see which one was, you know, more suited for me, and it turned out that it was football.
He had a 4-year career with the Pats, his best in 1991, and he's now settled back in Michigan with his family, who keep him very busy.
I think the biggest thing that I've found out is that you have to be very patient. And if you're not patient, you will soon become patient, because things that you take for granted, you know, as an adult or as a teenager or whatever, are so tedious for somebody who is 2, 3, 4, and 5 years old. You just don't. Until you have children, you really can't fathom that.
Possibly the most unlikely "where are they now" that we found is former Patriot Daryl Haley, a 6'6", 325-pound offensive tackle. He is now the world's largest triathlete.
Most guys who do triathlon are between 5'5" and 5'11", 130 pounds and 150 pounds. Most of them are white male. Well, here comes Daryl. You know, he's 6'6", 325, and you're African American. It just doesn't mix. A lot of people tell me that, you know, there's no way I could do it just because of the physics didn't work, and I just refuse to believe it.
Which was the situation when he first decided to attempt the sport.
It was myself and a couple buddies sitting around watching a basketball game about 6, 7 years ago. And the Ironman triathlon came on. And one of the guys said, you know, look at these people out here running around. And so for the heck of it, I said, I'm gonna do one. And it was the Ironman, the one that takes place in Hawaii. And all the guys just kind of started laughing, you know, ex-jocks. So I said, you know, I'm gonna do this thing. So we all made a bet. They said that I could not do it. I said I could do it. So we all betted like $500. And the next day I went out and got a road bike, got a pair of swimming trunks, started training, and then the following year, 1995, I did it. So playing for the Patriots, you know, for several years. The whole game of football was basically based around explosion and, you know, quickness. I use triathlon very, very professionally in the sense that I use it for international socialization, cross-cultural education, human and race relations. I race in Spain, Denmark, New Zealand, Australia, Europe, all throughout Europe. And I have scholarship programs set up with different countries where we do exchange programs with students. So it's a big thing going on right now. I would go to my grave doing triathlon because it doesn't require me where I have to win. I can always participate. So once again, it's not about me. I'm spreading it out. The more people I get out there, the better it is.
When I was playing basketball, I started a real estate business with a partner, and we have continued that business, and I'm still in the real estate business. That's the main thing I do. And then on the side, I do some basketball camps, and in the car business a little bit. My mom and dad have a farm down near Wichita, Kansas, so I go down there from time to time. So do a lot of different things. Really enjoy, I think, staying in one place, though, a little more than I used to.
I left my home in San Francisco.
He won countless NBA championships as a player and as a coach, but what keeps K.C. Jones motivated today is his music.
To me, where little cable cars climb halfway to the stars.
My dad played guitar, and I remember when I was like 9 years old, he'd be in the kitchen, his foot on the table with the guitar, and doing the blues, and it just kind of grabbed me.
Yesterday my life was filled with rain.
KC now makes regular club appearances in the Connecticut area, where he's also doing some radio broadcasting for the University of Hartford. He says he doesn't know if he'll ever coach again, but his music will never stop.
You're nobody until somebody loves you.
I'm much more comfortable coaching on the court or playing on the court than singing. So I know basketball. I don't know singing, but I appreciate it so much, and it's a sense of what I get out of it is appreciation for such beautiful music, and the other is that it's meditative.
Casey, of course, was the kind of man who, if you ask him once to step up to the microphone, he was reluctant. But it was the kind of reluctance that you knew was not really real, because as you were asking, he was leaning forward as he said no. And if you asked the second time, you had to get out of the way as he grabbed that mic out of your hand, okay?
Casey's former teammate, Sach Sanders, had a brief stint as coach of the Celtics in the late 70s. He now works for the NBA.
It's called the Office of Player Programs, and been involved with this program for 14 years here at the NBA. It's basically a program geared to helping players make the transition from college, or in very few cases from high school, into the pro ranks. And of course it helps veterans make the transition out of the league.
And so as this program deals with what former athletes are doing today, Sanders helps them get to that point.
There's a limited amount of how much golf, tennis, swimming, or hanging out that you can do before it does not start to impact on you. And you start wondering about the value that you can bring. If there's something else I can do, you start questioning all these things, and sooner or later you'll want to do something.
Former Celtic Chris Ford had little trouble going from player to coach. Up until recently, he'd been coaching non-stop ever since his playing days. Currently, he's back home in Linfield, contemplating his next move.
I think it's an opportunity that I wish everyone had in their lives, where you could take a year off from your job and enjoy the family and do some things that you ordinarily wouldn't be able to do. And I find it as a very relaxing and very energizing time.
But that doesn't mean he's away from the game. He has a son, Mike, who is a player at Linfield High, another son who's playing college ball, and a daughter who, like Dad, is a coach.
I'm putting a lot of mileage on my car, and it's a rare opportunity that I'm trying to take full advantage of.
And as far as Ford's future plans go?
I'd like to stay in New England if at all possible, and I would seriously consider coaching in college.
Which differs from Ford's former coach Bill Fitch, who at age 69 still watches 6 NBA games a night.
Around here, when they see the glow in the sky, they know that the satellite's working. And I think probably I could start a business on temporary coach, go in and coach any ball club. But you know, at my age, they're looking for the young coaches. But I've stayed available.
Fitch currently lives outside Houston, Texas, having last coached for the LA Clippers.
I always said I'd never write my book until I knew I wasn't going to stand up in front of a team. In other words, I never felt it was right to be coaching and writing books. So I still haven't written the book.
You're a little late on the screen, but still put your hand up, all right? Make them shoot over something. Let's go.
And when I retired, I didn't want nothing to do with basketball. I just wanted to get as far away from it as possible. But now that I've had some time off, I'm starting to feel those competitive juices to the floor again.
And so the chief, Robert Parrish, plans to make it himself as an NBA coach.
Box out, one shot. One shot. And stop. Another thing, stop reaching.
He recently coached his first game with the Maryland Mustangs of the USBL.
One of the attributes that a coach has to have, you got to be very patient with your players. Also, I realized that this is not the NBA. So the talent is not as good as the NBA level. So I had to keep telling myself, you know, this is a minor league, and have patience with the players.
Too much one-on-one basketball. Let's play together. Move the basketball. Play together out there.
Ironically, the Chiefs' opponent in his first ever game as a head coach was against a team coached by an old nemesis. Yes, it was Chocolate Thunder himself, Daryl Dawkins. But it's a former teammate who Chief talks to for advice on his new career.
Last time I talked to Larry, I told him that I had aspirations to be a coach in the NBA one day. He asked me had I lost my mind.
I'm in the development office for the university. It's fundraising, major gift work, so it concentrates on people who have the capacity to give $100,000 or more. And one of my jobs is to make sure that I clear the road for them so that they can give their money in the most meaningful way to them at the university.
That's it, just stay right behind him to the last turn. You got him. Let's go, yeah, he's doing all right, though.
The majority of the runners here at Central Catholic High School in Portland, Oregon, have never been to Boston. In fact, they weren't even born when their coach, Alberto Salazar, sprinted to a win in the 1982 Boston Marathon.
If just getting to the top is your only purpose in life, you know, at some point you're going to be disappointed. And so, you know, I've realized from my own experience that the other things that running taught me and my other experiences in life are more important. So I try and use my coaching of high school kids as a ways to teach them some values. And that to me is the most important thing that I can do with my experience, is to try and help some young kids to be better people and lead better lives.
Salazar is also a consultant and public speaker for Nike. Due to asthma, he no longer runs marathons, but it hasn't diminished his love for the sport.
70 seconds right now, just stay right there.
So what I'm trying to do with kids is give them what the top athletes are doing in the world, just as I was given that as a 16-year-old by training with the Greater Boston Track Club, and scale it down to their level.
Okay,
but hopefully by training them right, the very best way possible, at the end of 4 years, they're going to be the best that they can be.
Once you wind in there, stay focused on your target. Beautiful. Beautiful, kid. You know, I'll always love baseball. It's you know, was my livelihood, and I love playing it. But once that decision came, I was ready to get away from it. I didn't watch it. I went to the first big league game I went to after I retired was not until 2 years later.
Spike Owens' 14-year baseball career included stops in Seattle, New York, Montreal, California, and, of course, Boston. Born and raised in Texas, he's now back home raising his 4 kids, keeping very busy.
Come on now, protect it up there. I do coach one of my son's baseball teams, 14-year-old this year, and have coached both of them last year, and that keeps you busy. And this year I'm involved. I'm doing some radio for the Round Rock Express, the AA franchise right up the road from Austin that Nolan Ryan and his son, they own.
He also found time to go back to college and get his degree.
Came from my mom. I knew that she wanted me to finish, and I signed after my junior year, like a lot of baseball guys do. And I just decided one day I'm going to do it, and I made a phone call down there to see kind of where I was, and they kind of laughed at me like, you got a ways to go. And I said, well, let's see what we can do to start, getting after it and knocking it down. And I was a full-time student for 2 years. I actually graduated in 1999. And I'm as proud of that as anything I've accomplished. I really am.
Being on that little green John Deere right there is my time just to sit and relax. And this field is my field. I don't let anybody touch it. And if you could have seen this thing 5 years ago, you'd be amazed at how well this place looks, although it does need to cut grass.
Spikes College and Red Sox teammate Calvin Chiraldi also went back to UT.
Got my teaching certificate and then came on here as a part-timer while I was in school to get certified, and their coach didn't want the baseball job anymore, so he gave it to me.
Along with those jobs, he's also building the school's baseball field.
And the Mets are down to their last out.
I guess I got a little excited with 2 outs. It's a natural reaction, but it's something that you have to do. I mean, I was 22 or 23, but I guess my emotions took over a little bit, and I didn't pitch. I just threw. The only one I regret was Ray Knight's, because it was an 0-2 pitch, and I think that was the first 0-2 hit I gave up all year, because doing that, Donnie would find you in Kangaroo Court, and it was pretty expensive. So I just remember on that pitch, just rearing back and throwing as hard as I could. I didn't have any idea where it was going. I just was going to throw it as hard as I could, and that's the only pitch I regret, because it was 0-2. I didn't do anything to set up for later on.
Chiraldi enjoyed his time up in Boston, and unlike many Red Sox fans, doesn't dwell on the past, but he still makes baseball a part of his life, teaching kids and building fields.
I mean, when baseball was over with, that was it. Yes, it was fun. Yes, it paid the bills. It allowed me to do a lot of things, but that's over and done with, new part of my life, and that's what I look forward to. And that's what I enjoy now.
Well, I looked up to my dad when I was a kid through boxing. Today I look up to my dad through recovery. And I'm a third-generation boxer, but I'm probably a third-generation substance abuser. And my dad blessed me with the gift of giving me a 12-step recovery program in my life.
Back for Trent Mulvey. Hockey's changed a lot over the years, but Boston fans have always had a love for the Bruins' tough guys. Those players who may not have had the hockey skills of an Orr or a Gretzky, but were always ready to rough it up with an opponent and show the Bruins will not back down from a challenge. The late 70s Bruins under Don Cherry had a few of those, like John Wensink.
You know, I've gone back several times since back to Boston, and Rhonda, my wife, and I, we were walking down the street one day, and this is 20 years later. I'm walking down, and they still recognize me. So that's a a good feeling.
Wensink started his career with St. Louis, where he now lives and works in the remodeling business.
I do remodeling of all kinds, you know, siding, basements, decks, whatever comes along, I basically do, and it's done well. I work alone. I kept it small. Part of the reason I've kept it small is because I do like to be able to come and go as I please, whereas if you've got somebody working for you, you've got to make sure that they've got something going.
He also likes the freedom to go hunting. That's something he started after retiring from hockey.
You know, my accent, everybody thinks, you know, they're right away, you're from Canada. Oh, yeah, I'm from Canada. Oh, you're a big fisherman, big hunter. Never did any of it as a kid. A lot of that was my dad didn't like guns. But when I joined my in-laws, they were from, you know, South Cape Girardeau, South Missouri, and, you know, hunting was their #1 thing. And I like outdoors. I'm not necessarily, the actual kill doesn't excite me as much as seeing the game and just being outside. But, you know, I love being out here.
Growing up on the reserve, and we never had an arena here. I went out and skated, scraped the ice on the ponds, and played my hockey as best I could there. And we couldn't afford it really to put all the kids into what they wanted to do. I never started skating until I was 11 years old.
He may not have started skating until he was 11 years old, but Stan Jonathan carved out a pretty good career for himself with the Bruins.
The style I played was forechecking, rough type style, and the Bruins were playing that type of style then. With Wayne Cashman, we had Mike Milbury, Bobby Smots was there, and guys that played a physical type of game. And I fit right into the mold that Don was coaching there, and certainly the fans enjoyed it.
A true fan favorite, Jonathan, after retiring, spent a couple of years living in Boston before moving back to his native Iroquois reservation in Ontario.
I do a lot of carpenter work around when it's available around reserve. We built some nice schools in the last few years for our schools and the housing. We need housing down here badly.
The reserve now has its own indoor rink, but Jonathan went ahead and built an outdoor pond so that his grandchildren, yes, grandchildren, can learn what it was like for him growing up on the reservation.
You're trying to keep your culture. That's the biggest thing as our native people are right now. So remember where you come from and get our kids to be involved in our dancing and our crafts and stuff like that. So remember what was here before.
And the guy from TV 38, studio host for the Big Bad Bruins back in the glory days. You know the guy. I mean, the guy that made that silly vow that he wouldn't shave until the Bruins won the Stanley Cup. Well, they haven't, and so he hasn't. And now he will occasionally babble narration for Where Are They Now? We'll see you next time right here in the front row.
O'Reilly is out into the stands, and this is going to be something. O'Reilly's into the stands fighting with a Ranger fan, and all the Bruins are going over. Gilbert is in there, Peter McNabb. They're all into the stands. McNabb's going up to grab somebody about 7 or 8 rows up.
Well, this is too bad that after the game is over, it gets out of hand like this. And you got to worry about